In this video I'm going to go through the four operations with decimal numbers, and the four operations are addition, subtraction, multiplication and division. This is from chapter 7 of Hazy Mathematics textbook. This is from chapter 6. Okay, adding and subtracting decimals. I have pre-selected some questions from exercise 6e, which is found on page 137. Right, so let's start with addition first of all. The first one is 1.76 plus I have 0.961. I'm adding them up, so I put a plus sign. Now you need to make sure that you have lined up the decimals. See, now they are aligned, and also make sure that there's only one number underneath another number. So for example, under 1 I have 0, 7 and 9 are lined up, 6 and 6, and 1 there's nothing on top. Make sure they're lined up. Now we always start from the right hand side, from the end, so 1 on top of that is nothing. If there's no number, you can put a 0 there. So 1 plus 0 or 1 plus nothing is 1. We move to the left, we have 6 plus 6, 6 plus 6 is 12. I write the 2 and then the first digit, which is a 1, on top of this number on the left hand side. Now 1 plus 7 is 8, 8 plus 9 is 17. Okay, 8 plus 9 is 17. Put the 1 on top. 1 plus 1 is 2, 2 plus 0, okay, is 2. I forgot that I need to drag that decimal down there as well. So the answer is 2.721. Let's do the other one. We have 13.56. Then we have 6.073. Always remember to line up the decimals and make sure you line up all the numbers. Now we have from the right hand side, I'll start with 3. There's nothing, so I'll put from the right hand side. 3 plus 0 is 3, 7 plus 6 is 13, so I'll put the 3 and 1 on top. 1 plus 5 is 6, 6 plus 0 is 6, and then this decimal there, so I can drag that down. 6 plus 3 is 9, and then this 1 plus nothing is 1, so 19.633 is the answer. Okay, the third one, we have got 3 decimal numbers, so 29.63 plus 1, 27.98 plus 2.45. Doesn't really matter if you have 3 decimal numbers, 4 or 5, as long as you know how to set them up, it becomes a lot easier. So let's say the first one is 29.63. Remember, always start off perhaps from the decimal point and then move to the left, just like that, making sure there's one number underneath another one. 4 and 5 and then 2, plus sign. See, I have lined up all the decimal points, and all the numbers are aligned as well. So start from the right hand side. 5 plus 8 is 13, 13 plus 3 is 16, so I'll write the 6, 1 on top here. From the top I've got 1 plus 6 is 7, 7 plus 9 is 16, 16 plus 4 is 20. I put the 0 and 2 on top here, and then see the next is decimal, so I drag that down. 2 plus 9 is 11, 11 plus 7 is 18, 18 plus 2 is 20, so I put the 0 and 2 on top. I have 2 plus 2 plus 2, 6, and then on this the last number is 1. There's nothing on top, there's nothing below, so 1 plus nothing is 1. So my answer is 160.06. Subtraction now. We've got 2.8. Likewise, 2.8, line up the decimals and all the numbers. Make sure you put the sign. Now, so I'm subtracting. Always start from the right hand side, from the bottom. So we have 5. We are subtracting the bottom number from the top number. So we have a 5. If I subtract it from 8, I'm going to be left with 3. And that decimal point you can put there. If I subtract 0 from 2, it's going to be 2 itself, so the answer is 2.3. Okay, so the other one is, second one is 7.2 minus 0.65. minusing them. Now likewise, we always start from the right hand side. 5 and there's nothing, so remember, if there's nothing on top, you can just put a 0 there. And we have 5. If I'm taking away, can I take it away from 0? I can't. So in that case, I'm just going to go to the left digit of 0, and then I'll borrow 1 from it. So this number will give 1. Now remember, when it gives 1, this 0 doesn't become 1, it in fact becomes 10. Now if I take away 5 from 10, I'm going to be left with 5. Now 6 take away, remember this is not a 2 because it gave away 1 to the number on the right, so this is 1 now. Can I take 6 from 1? I can't. So what do I do in that case? I go to the number on the left hand side, which is a 7. Can I borrow 1 from it? Yes, I can. 7 is going to give away 1. Now this number becomes 1. Remember it was a 1, and this becomes 11 now. If I take away 6 from 11, I'm going to be left with 5. The next is decimal. I'll put the and remember, now that 7 gave away 1, it's a 6 now. So if I take away 0 from 6 with 6, now that's the answer. Now the third one is, okay, so the third one is subtract 12.118 from 18, which means we subtract this from 18, we write the 18 first. So I'm writing 18 and I'm subtracting 12 from it, so that goes second, 12.118. Remember, I'm minusing them. How do I do this? Now I have 18, which is a whole number, and then 12.118 a decimal. How do I do this? Now in that case, 18 is same as 18.0, isn't it? 18.0 is 18. Now we have 3 numbers here behind the decimal, so what I can literally put a 0, 3 zeros, one on top of each of these numbers. So 18.000 is same as 18. I haven't actually changed anything. So let's start from the right hand side. 8, can I take away 8 from 0? I can't. So what do? I'll borrow 1 from the next number, and next number is a 0, so you can't actually give any number away. In that case, this 0 will look at the one next to it. Now that's also a 0. What do I do in that case? I actually keep going to the left until there's a number. Now I've reached 8. Now this 8 is going to give one number to this. It becomes a 10 now. This gives to the right now, and then it gives to this number. Now, and this is a 10. So if I take away 8 from 10, what am I going to be left with? A 2. Now, remember this became a 10, it gave away 1, so it's a 9 now. So if I take away 1 from 9, I'm going to be left with 8. And then we made it 10, it gave away 1, if you can remember, it's a 9 now, not a 10. So if I take away 1 from 9, I'm going to be left with 8. Next is decimal point, I can just simply drag it down. This is not an 8, if you remember, it gave away 1, so it's a 7 now. If I take away 2 from 7, I'm going to be left with 5. Now 1 take away 1 is 0. So that's my answer. Now this 05.882 is same as 5.882, so there's no need to put that 0 at the start, and this is my answer. Okay, so here's a question which is an A-level question in terms of complexity, because it contains quite a few things that we need to do before we get our final answer. So let's read the question. The question says, each fortnight Claire is paid $1,356.28 less the deductions given in the table alongside. How much pay does Claire keep each fortnight? Now, we need to understand what the question is given us and what the question is asking us. Now, the question says this is the total pay for Claire each fortnight. Now and then we need to deduct all of this from this. Then we find out how much does actually Claire keep each fortnight. Now we can do it two ways. One is where we actually start minusing or subtracting each one of these from the total, but that will take us a longer time. The other option is we can add this column, add it up, and then whatever the answer is, minus it from the total. So let's do the second method, which will take us less time. Right, let's add up all of these numbers together. So we'll start from the right hand side. Let's add them up. So let's start adding them up. Start from the right hand side. 2 plus 2 is 4, 4 plus 0, and 0 is 4. Second column, 8 plus 6 is 14, 14 plus 4 is 18, 18 plus 9 is 27. So I'll write the 7, the 2 goes on top. Now the next number, see, before the next number there's a decimal, so you can just literally drag that down. Decimal. Now we have 4, we can start from the top if you like. 2 plus 7 is 9, 9 plus 3 is 12, 12 plus 4 is 16, 16 plus 4 is 20. So I'll put the 0 there and 2 on top here. Now 2 plus 0 is 2, plus 5 is 7, 7 plus 2 is 9, 9 plus 1 is 10. So I'll put the 0 and I'll just say 7, there's no number there, so I'll put that 7 there. So that's my answer. 774 cents is what gets deducted. Now, have we got the answer? No, we haven't, because the question is how much pay does Claire keep? Now this is the deduction, this question says. Now, so we need to subtract that from the total. So we have the totals 1,356.28. Now if I minus that, so start from the decimal point, 74, make sure you're lining up all the numbers, 7. Okay, now let's take away 4. Can we take 4 from 8? Yes, 4 from 8, I'm left with 4. Can I take away 7 from 2? I can't. So what do I do in that case? I go to the next number, which is on the left hand side, borrow 1 from it. So this will give 1. Now this becomes 12. So if I take away 7 from 12, I'm going to be left with 5. Can drag that decimal point. Now remember there was a 6, it gave away 1, so it's 5 now. So if I take away 0 from 5, I'm going to be left with 5 itself, and 0 subtracted from 5, 5 again. Now can I subtract 7 from 3? I can't. 7's bigger. So what do? I borrow 1 from the next number, which is a 1 on the left hand side. So if this gives away 1, this becomes 13. Now if I take away 7 from 13, I'm going to be left with 6. Now remember, this 1 gave away itself, or gave away 1. Now 0, so there's no number there, so there's nothing we need to do. That's my answer. And that's my answer. 655.54 cents is what Claire gets paid every fortnight once we have deducted everything given in this column. Okay, let's do some multiplication examples. This is from exercise 6H, which is found on page 142, remember, from the year 7 textbook, and chapter 6. First one is 0.3 times the 0.7. Now multiplying them, I'll just delete that. Okay, so I am multiplying them. Just you need to remember, when we are multiplying, there's no need to line up the decimals. If you want to, that's okay, but remember, it's important when you're adding or subtracting, line up the decimals. Now when we're multiplying, likewise, we always start from the right hand side. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to start with this 7, and then I'm going to multiply this with everything which is in the top row. So multiply this with everything in the top row one by one, and then we move on to the next number. Okay, let's do it now. So 7 times 3 is 21. I write the 1. 7 times 3 is 21, so I write the 1, 2 on top here, 2 on top. Okay, now 7 times 0 is 0 plus that number, which is 2. That. Now if the next number, I'm done with 7, I'll move on to the next number, is 0. See, if it is actually 0, there's no need to multiply with anything, because the answer is going to be 0, 0, if only that is the only number left. Now in that case, so I'm done. Now what do? I'm done, but that's not the answer. 21 is not the answer, because we can't, when we are multiplying, we can't just simply drag this decimal point down. What we need to do in this case is we add up all the numbers, or all number of digits behind the decimal. So if you look at the first one, 0.3, 3 is the only number, so there's only one number behind the decimal. In this number 0.7, there's also one digit, or one number behind the decimal. So in total there are two numbers that are behind the decimal. So we go to our answer, we start from the end, we start going to the left 1, 2. Then we'll put our decimal point there. Let me just repeat that. Eraser. So what do I do? So start from the end, we go 1, 2 digits and put it. So now if you look at our answer, if you want to, you can put a 0 there. Now if you want to, you can put a 0 here. So the answer is 0.21. Now remember, see, there are two numbers, one here behind the decimal. In our final answer we have 1 and 2 numbers or 2 digits behind the decimal point. Now okay, let's do the other one. Hopefully it will start making more sense. Now the other one is 7.9 times 3.2. I am multiplying them. Now start from the right hand side. So 2 times 9 is 18, so I'll write the 8, 1 on top here. 2 times 7 is 14, plus 1 is 15, so I'm going to write 15 completely because there's no number where I put this 1 on top of. So I'm done with 2 with everything in the top row. Now I'll move on to the second number. So when we move on to the second number on the left hand side, so sorry, I'm just ignoring this decimal point because we can't drag this down. I'll show you how to do it after. So once I'm done with 2 now with everything in the top row, move on to 3. So if I start, before I start multiplying 3 times 9, I actually start in a new line and I put a 0. Start a new line with a 0. Just remember, you just have to do it. So 3 times 9, start with 0, and then 3 times 9 is 27, so I'll write the 7 here, 2 on top. 3 times 7 is 21, plus 2 is 23, so I'll write 23 completely. Okay, so I'm done with both of these numbers, so there's no other number. I am done. And what I'm going to do, once I'm done, I'm going to add everything which is in here between these two lines. Add them up. Start from the right hand side. 8 plus 0 is 8. Then we have 5 plus 7 is 12, so I'll write the 2, 1 on top here. 1 plus 1 is 2. 2 plus 3 is 5. Now 2 plus nothing is 2. Where does my decimal point go? Because we can't just simply drag this down in here. Remember what I did in with the first example? How many numbers do I have, or how many digits do I have in the first one behind the decimal point? 7.9, so only 0.9, one digit which is behind the decimal. Likewise in 3.2, only one digit which is behind the decimal point. So in total I have 2, 1 and 2 digits. So we go to our final answer. So start from the end, we start counting to the left, and then how many times do we go? 2. So we'll put our decimal point there. Now another way to double check your answer is look at this, 25.28. How many numbers do we have, or how many digits do we have behind the decimal point, or on the right hand side? 2. And that's exactly how many there are in the actual answers. There's 1 and 2 numbers behind the decimal, and that is also the case. Remember, start from the end, start going to the left hand side. How many digits or how many spots depends how many numbers there are in your question behind the decimal. From the end, go to the left 2 digits in this case and put the decimal point there. So the answer is 25.28. Right, let's do the third one. 2.4 times 1.5 times 3.22. Now we have 3 decimal numbers. In this case, what we need to do, or what I normally do, is multiply 2 of them first. Now we have 2.4. So we have 2.4, and then I'm going to multiply it by 1. 2.4 I'm going to multiply by 1.5. Now start from the right hand side. 5 times 4 is 20, so I'll write the 0 here and 2 on top here. Now 5 times 2 is 10. 10 plus 2 is 12, so I'll write the 12 completely. Just erase that part. Okay, so that's 12. Now move on to this number. Remember, ignore the decimal point. Now let's move on to 1. Start that in a new line, and the new line will start off with a 0. Now 1 times 4 is 4, so write the 4. And then 1 times 2 is 2. Remember that 2 was from previous time, so just ignore that for now. We have 1 times 2 is 2. Okay, so I'm multiplied 5, I have multiplied 1 with everything, so there's nothing left. Once I'm done, I'm going to add them up. Now remember how I have lined up all these numbers here, so it's important that you do likewise. when we're adding them up. So 0 is 6 and 1 plus 2 is 3. This is 360 is not the answer because we have not accounted for the decimal point. Remember how many numbers or how many digits we have behind the decimal in these two decimals? 0.4 is one number and 0.5, so two numbers. We go from our answer from the end, we start counting 1 and then 2. We put our decimal points there. So our answer is 3.60. Now that's the only answer when we multiply two of them, so we need to, whatever the answer is, we're going to multiply with the third one, this one. So it's going to be 3.60 multiplied by 3.22. Remember, we're multiplying them. Now start from the right hand side. 2 times 0 is, so start from this number, we're going to multiply with everything which is in the top row. So 2 times 0 is 0, anything times 0 is 0. Now 2 times 6 is 12, so I'll write the 2 here, 1 on top here. And then 2 times 3 is 6, 6 plus 1 is 7. Remember, just ignore the decimal point. Now I'm done with this number with everything in the top row. I move on to the new, the second number on the left hand side. Start with a new line, always start new line with a 0, and then 2 times 0 is 0. 2 times 6 is 12, write the 2, write 1 on top here. Now 2 times 3 is 6, 6 plus 1 is 7, so write that 7. Okay, so I'm done with this as well. Now I'll move on to 3. I'm going to multiply with everything. Remember, new line. New line, we are moving now 2 spots, or 2 numbers on the left hand side. We need to put 2 zeros now. Every time we start a new line, we keep adding extra zeros. See, this line's in here added with a 0. Now I move on to the extra line, so the extra line start with extra 0, so there'll be 2 zeros. Now 3 times 0 is 0. 3 times 6 is 18, so I'll write the 8 and 1 on top here. Now 3 times 3 is 9, 9 plus 1 is 10, so I'll write that 10 completely. 10. Okay, now I'm done with everything, with all these numbers. I've multiplied with everything on top. Now it's time to add them up. Start from the right hand side, 0, 0, 0, so it'll be 0. Then we have 2 plus 0 plus 0 is 2. 7 plus 2 is 9, 9 plus 0 is still 9. Now we have 7 plus 8, which is 15, so I'll write the 5. Oops. We have 7 plus 8, which is 15, so I'll write the 5. And 1 on top of this number. Now 1 plus 0 is 1, and then this number is just by itself, no number on top, so 1. We'll keep it as 1 as it is. Now, where does the decimal point go? Because we can't just drag that down, remember? So when we are multiplying, now in this case, let's go to the original question. We have, how many numbers do we have behind the decimal point? 3.60, so we have 2 numbers behind the decimal. 3.22 also has 2 numbers behind the decimal, so in total we have 1, 2, 3, 4 numbers. So we go to our final answer, start from the end of it, we go 4 digits to the left, so 1, 2, 3, 4, and then we put our decimal point here. Right, so the answer is 11.5920. Okay, so it's time to do now division. Division is probably, out of the 4 operations, is probably the hardest of all. And this, I've selected a few examples, and that is from exercise 6i, which is found on page 146. Before we do division by decimal, let's do one long division by hand using whole numbers. For example, the first one is 65 divided by 5. So if I write this down, 65 is being divided by 5, so it's slightly differently how it's done. Now, division. Okay, so this division is actually done slightly differently. 65 divided by 5, so 65, the first number is being divided by 5, so that goes inside this box, this square root, so it goes inside the box, and 5 goes outside the box. Now we need to divide everything inside this box by the number which is sitting outside. So let's look at the first one inside the box. What is it? It's 6. How many times does 5 go into a 6? 1. So we're going to put that 1 on top. 5 times 1 is 5, so we write that 5, and then once we're done we're going to subtract it. So 5 times 1 is 5, so if I subtract 5 from 6 I'm going to be left with 1. Now does that 5 go into 1? It doesn't. So in that case what we need to do, we're going to look at the box. What's the next number? It's a 5, so we're going to drag that down in here. So what is it now? It's 15. So how many times does 5 go into 15? 5 goes 5 times 3. Okay, I'll delete that. Eraser. Okay, so 5 times 3 is 15. Subtract it again. 15 minus 15 is 0. Now you need to make sure that the remainder is always 0. Now that means we've achieved the answer. So 65 divided by 5 is 13. So the answer is whatever is on top of the box. Let me highlight it. You need to make sure that this number, the remainder, okay. Now highlight it. So this is the answer. 13 is on top of the box is the answer. And also remember, make sure that the remainder or at the end is always 0. Okay, so what's our answer? Our answer, so 65 divided by 5 equals 13. That is the answer. Okay. Okay, let's do the second one, which is a decimal number. Now, (32.5) divided by 5 now. So likewise, the first number is being divided, so we'll put that inside the box. 32.5. So 32.5, the 5 goes outside. Now, how many times, look at the first one, it's a 3. Does 5 go into a 3? It doesn't. So if it doesn't go into that 3, what we need to do is 5 doesn't go into 3 in this first one. So in that case we're going to select the other one as well. So in this case, so we'll select 2 of them. Now what is that? It's a 32. So does 5 go into 32? Yes, it does. Now how many times does 5 go into 32? 5 times 6 is 5 times 6 is 30. Now if I then minus it, if I subtract 30 from 32, I'm going to be left with 2. Now what am I going to do? Go back to the box. What's next? It's 5. Before I drag this 5, there's a decimal. So in that decimal point, I'm going to put that up here. Here. Now that I've taken care of the decimal point, now that I can drag this 5 down. Now what is that? It's a 25 now. So how many times does 5 go into 25? Goes 5 times 5 is 25 exactly. Now minus it, I'm going to be left with 0. So what's my answer? My answer is on top of the box. So 32.5 divided by 5 is 6.5. So my answer is 6.5. So that this number is my answer, 6.5. 32.5 divided by 5 is 6.5. Let's do a few more. Hopefully it'll start making more sense. Alright, so we have 0.417 divided by 3. So the first number is being divided by the second one. So the first number goes inside the box, divided by 3. Okay, it's a decimal, and start is, the first number is 0. Now does 3 go into 0? It doesn't. So remember, if it doesn't, we can combine two digits together, but in this case we have a decimal point in between these two, so we need to take care of this decimal point. Now how many does 3 go into 0? It doesn't. So in that case, a 3, we can say 3 times 0, because 3 doesn't go into 0, and then that decimal point we can put it up here. Okay, right, because 3 times 0 is 0. If I subtract it, so I'm going to be left with 0 anyway. Now I've taken care of that decimal point. You never drag it down the decimal point when you're dividing, okay? So always put it up in here. Now, so we go to the next number, which is a 4. I can drag that down now, so that becomes 0.4. Now you know that 0.4 is same as 4, so I'm going to just erase that 0, because 0.4 is 0. So 0.4 is 4. Now, okay, Does 3 go into 4? Yes, it does. 3 times 1, it goes once, so 3 times 1 is 3. 3 times 1 is 3, and then I have to subtract it. So if I subtract 3 from 4, I'm going to be left with 1. Okay, so 3 doesn't go into 1. Now what am I going to do? I'm going to go back to the question inside the box. I'm done with 0, I'm done with 4, the next number is 1, so I'm going to drag that 1 down here. Now it becomes 11. So 3 times what number is 11? So it doesn't, but we can say that 3 goes into 11 3 times, because 3 times 3 is 9. If I subtract it from, because we can't do 3 times 4, because 3 times 4 is 12, which is more than 11. Has to be always less than 11 or exactly 11. So 3 cannot be 11, but it goes 3 times. So 3 times 3 is 9. So if I subtract it from 11, I'm left with 2. Now obviously 3 doesn't go into 2. What am I going to do next? So that number 7 is left in the box. I'm going to drag that down. So I'm going to keep dragging until there's no number left. Okay, so if I drag that down, is 7. Now it becomes 27. Does 3 go into 27? Yes. So 3 times 9 is exactly 27. Subtract it, remainder 0. And so that's the whole point. Make sure that the remainder at the end is a 0. Otherwise you have to keep doing it until it's a 0. So what's our answer? 0.417 divided by 3 is this on top of the box. So that equals 0.139. That's my answer. 0.417 divided by 3 is 0.139. You can check it with the calculator. Okay, let's do one more. 18 divided by 0.3. So the first number divided by the second one. If you do it the longer way, inside the box goes the first number 18, 0.06 is outside the box. Now, what you need to make, actually there's one thing you need to be aware of now. To make your life easier, make sure that this number which is outside the box is not a decimal. How do I do that? Now, we have 0.06. Now, 0.06. How do I make it a non-decimal? So if I multiply it by 100, why am I multiplying by 100? Because if you see this decimal point, I need to get rid of it. So if I shifted 1 spot to the right, 2 spots to the right, which means I have to multiply with 1 with 2 zeros. So if I multiply by 100, so that becomes 6. Now, because we've multiplied 0.06 by 100, we need to make sure we multiply this by 100 as well, otherwise it's not the same. So we need to make sure we are consistent. So 18 times by 100 is 1800. So my new division basically becomes 1800 divided by 6 is my new division question. I haven't actually changed my original question. What I've done is I've enlarged both of them by 100 times. I've multiplied them by 100 so that this number is not a decimal. So if and now my new division is 1800 divided by 6. Now let's divide that. 1800 goes inside the box, second number goes outside the box. Remember, always the first number or the number on the left hand side of the division sign goes inside the box, and the one on the right hand side goes outside. Now, does 6 go into 1? It doesn't. So what do? I'm going to combine two of them together. So I'm going to look at two of them together. So is 18, does 3 go into does 6 go into 18? Yeah, it does. 6 times 3 is 18 exactly. Okay, let me just erase. If I subtract it, so I subtract 18 from 18, I'm going to be left with 0. Now, what am I going to do next? So go back to the box. What's inside the box is what's the next number is a 0, so I'm going to drag that down. It's a 0. Now 6 times 0 is 0, right? If I minus it, 0 minus 0 is 0, and the next number you can drag it down, it's 0. So now 6 times 0 is 0, right? I'm just putting 2 zeros because there are 2 zeros here. Now that 0 take away 0 is 0, because there's no number to drag down in here, which means I'm done and my remainder is 0. So what's my answer? My answer is what's on top of this box, which is 300. Now, so we can say that 18 1800 divided by 6, the answer is what? 300. Which also means we go back to our original question, 18 divided by 0.06. So we can also say 18 divided by 0.06. The answer is also 300 because it's the same. We've just enlarged it by 100. 18 divided by. Let me just erase this part, which is a 0. So 18 divided by 0.06 is also 300. If that's confusing, let's do one more question. Hopefully it becomes less confusing. So you need to keep on doing division questions, and make sure you always double check with the calculator. And the more you do it, the faster you get at it, and the more it will start making sense. Okay, let's do one more. 0.021 divided by 1.4. Divided by 1.4. The first one is 0.021, so that goes inside the box. The second number goes outside the box, which is 1.4. Now, if you remember from the previous question, I said make sure this number, which is outside the box, is not a decimal. Now, how do I make sure this is not a decimal? You can multiply by tens or 100, things like that. Now, 1.4. If I multiplied by what, so I need to shift the decimal point one spot, right? So I need to put it right to the end, so which means I only multiply by 10. I only got 1 0. So if I multiply 1.4 by 10, this becomes 14. So I've got rid of the decimal point. Now you need to make sure, because you've multiplied 1.4 by 10, you need to make sure that you multiply the other number that also by 10. So 0.021, if I multiply it by 10, now, which means this goes one spot to the right in here, which becomes 0021. Now remember, 0021 is same as 0.21. So you can just ignore that 0. You can leave just one of them. So 0.21. Now, what is my new division? So my new division basically becomes 0. Divided by 14 is my new question. So this becomes this. Now, so 0.21 divided by 14, which means 0.21 goes inside the box and 14 goes outside the box. So always remember, always the one on the left hand side of the division symbol goes inside the box, and the number on the right hand side goes outside. Now, so what's inside the box? Remember, we go a digit at a time. So does 14 go into a 0? It doesn't. We combine two of them together, but before we do that, there's a decimal point we need to take care of. Now, so let's look at the first one. 0. Does 14 go into 0? It doesn't. So what we can say is 14 times 0 is 0, right? So if I subtract that, I'm going to left with 0. Now next is a decimal point. Instead of dragging it down, I put it up there. So I pull it up, it goes up here. Remember, it always goes up. You never drag it down in a division question. Now, so it's a division there. Okay, now what's next? I'm going to drag this down. It becomes 0.2. Now remember, 0.2 is same as just 2. Okay, or let me just erase that to avoid confusion. Now, okay, so it's a 2. Now what do I do next? Does 14 go into 2? It doesn't. So what, in that case, what I can do is I can say 14 times 0 is 0. If I subtract it, I'm going to be left with 2, and then I can drag this next number down, which is a 21. So if I drag this 1, it becomes 21. Now, does 14 go into 21 now? Yes, it does. 14 times 1 is 14. If I minus it, I'm going to be left with 7. Why did I only go 1? Because if I go 14 times 2 is 28, which is more than 21, so we can't do that. So, okay, so 14 times 1 is 14. If I subtract from 21, I'm going to be left with 7. Remember, the goal is to make sure the remainder at the end is a 0, but right now it's not a 0, it's a 7. And then there's no other number left, so I can drag it down. Considering this is a decimal number, now what I can do is I can put a 0 at the end, and then I can drag this down. That becomes 70 now. Okay, so does 14 go into 70? Yes, it does. How many times? If you know your time symbol, or you can use a calculator, 14 times 5 is precisely 70. Now 70 minus 70, going to be left with 0, and that was the goal, to make sure there's no remainder left at the end. Okay, so what's our answer? My answer is what's on top of this box. So my answer is what's on top of the box. 0.015 is my answer. 0.015. Okay, hopefully that has made sense. Now if you want to get better at doing decimals or before operations, please keep on doing more and more questions, and the more you do it, the faster you'll get at it, and it will start making more sense, and it just becomes too easy. Thank you for watching this video.